Welcome back to Send Better Emails. What are we calling it? The best podcast, the best e-commerce email marketing podcast in Central Norwich. That's what we're going with. We've got another guest today. So this guy slid into my DMs, and I thought, he looks interesting, so we'll have a chat. We got chatting, and I invited him on the podcast. So good things happen in the DMs. We've got Scott from Parameter. Hey, Scott.
Hello, gents. We okay?
Yes, all good, mate. All good. So Scott is a social media guru. Is that fair?
A polite way of putting it. I like it.
Yeah. So we actually haven't had a organic social media expert on the podcast yet. So when we were chatting, I thought I've got to get Scott on, and he's going to share some tips around social media, what kind of content you could be creating, how you should be treating your audience, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're an e-commerce brand and you're struggling to come up with content ideas, you don't know where to take your organic social media, stay tuned for this episode, because Scott's going to drop some wisdom in a bit. But first off, we have the quick fire round of questions that Scott has told me he's very, very prepared for just before this call. So let's go in first. Me and James, we're going to take turns here. So firstly, one book. It doesn't have to be a work-related one. It could be fiction or non-fiction, but your favorite book that you would recommend to everyone.
Okay, so for context, I'm panicking hearing these questions, but I'd say the book that comes to mind, one that I read quite recently. So I'm not a massive reader, which we'll probably get onto later, I'm sure. But
yeah,
I read The Silent Patient, which is like a psycho thriller fiction book. So I've never been a fiction reader. And basically I was on holiday with my wife and she was like, you need to do something, like, because I'm just up and down running around the whole time wanting to do something. Someone recommended that book. I read it. I literally didn't put it down, read it all in one day. She then got annoyed at me for not talking to her, but it was just gripping. I'm there by the pool screaming like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'd 100% recommend that. Keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. And honestly, I recommend it to so many people now.
Nice. Okay, cool. I think I actually read that a few years ago by Alex somebody, is it?
Alex.
Yeah.
It's a long surname, but it is mental. Even just now thinking about it, I'm like,
Nice. Yeah, I do remember reading that. That was good. I also remember, I think my wife read it as well, and we were kind of chatting about it at the same time. Yeah, good book. Nice. And it's nice to have an interesting one as well, because people usually come on the pod and they recommend like some pretentious like workbook that they've read, and they've probably only skim read or like read a few chapters, but it's good to have some fiction.
well, it's like all the classics, like what you want me to say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or one of those.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. No, this shit's crazy. This is worth reading.
Nice. Give that a read, everyone.
The best thing about this section is that we invariably end up throwing all of our previous guests under the bus in analysing. So soon, Scott, you'll become the victim of this. We'll be like, remember that guy that recommended that shit thriller? Scott, favourite podcast?
Okay, I've got two. One is Talk of the Devils, which is a Man United podcast by The Athletic. So I'm a massive United fan. So again, not business related. As you can tell, I keep my work separate. That's just cool. Nice. I like the tactic chat. I like the ranting that's not too social media first. And then I actually started listening to recently a podcast called Business of Sport. So it's by two guys that run a VC fund that heavily focus on sports tech and that side of things. And honestly, some of the people that they get on as well, massive athletes. And it really kind of goes beyond, I guess, undercover a little bit more around the sporting world, into like the partnership side of things, into the contract side of things, the financing side of, say, football clubs. And they've done a recent episode all about what would happen to Tottenham if they get relegated and how it could actually ruin the club worse than we all think. So I think, to be fair, it's the sport world we don't really get a lot of information behind, and then it's kind of got that little businessy angle to it, the brand side. So that I would definitely recommend.
Awesome. As if I wasn't enjoying the Spurs relegation story already, and now it turns out they could be financially destitute as well. That is the cherry on top.
I mean, it goes into all these details around how financing works, how people get access to their parachute payments earlier, but then also the fact that Tottenham have this massive loan on their stadium, and Championship football isn't really going to pay for that. So yeah, worth a
That's
listen
tasty.
for the non-Spurs fan.
That's tasty. Yeah.
Juicy. That is juicy. Yeah, James, I didn't know that Scott was a Man United fan before I invited him on the podcast, by the way. So sorry about that. But I'm surprised that they talk tactics on that podcast if it's a Man United podcast.
Oh, why are you sorry, by the way? Like I support a rival team.
No, I just don't like United. I don't like United, but
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I'm fine about United.
no, he's fine about United. Fair enough.
Said the better 20 times.
Prefer him to Norwich, anyways.
Okay, one newsletter, Scott, or not, as the case may be.
Well, yeah, controversially, I don't really have a newsletter. I used to subscribe to the Morning Brew, which was just like a nice little overview of, I guess, news articles and social media news. But reading is not the platform that I digest best. I like podcasts, I like visuals, I like short form content, which we'll get into. So I can't really recommend a newsletter, I'll be honest. I mean, those were quite cool, but even now I sometimes just go to AI and just say, give me the news for the day, or yeah.
Fair.
Sadly, we don't have that. I probably get more newsletters from brands that are trying to send me more product on my subscriptions than anything else. Yeah, hate to break it to you guys. I don't really want.
No, all good. Yeah, I mean, you could have just said the Inbox Club's newsletter, but that's fine.
And the Inbox Club's newsletter. You can cut that in the
there we go.
Yeah, it's funny actually you say that, because I do. There is, it's funny, and it's also interesting you mentioned Morning Brew, because they've grown to such a size now that one of the main obstacles they have is that they're running out of people that would consider themselves like newsletter people. So I do think there's definitely a responsibility for newsletter publishers to start educating audiences that don't currently read newsletters and don't see the inbox as a place to consume content. As you know, like this is another way that you can gain information about, you know, Man United or whatever the topic might be. But thanks for that. That's definitely, I mean, you know, we've had a lot of newsletters recommended in this section. We've never had anyone say they don't read them, and it's probably the most conversation provoking one of the lot.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think that's where the value comes in when we talk about around brands and community and follow-ups and all that. I use that stuff for like the quick updates, like the notifications that are relevant to me and what I have subscribed to, or what I'm waiting for, so to speak. But and obviously it's that personal connection in it. Like, I mean, my child's nursery sending me their invoice. Probably the best way to reach me is through my email. Because I'm going to thank you any other ways. But I think when it's more general and it's like, so why am I signing up to it? I don't really tend to have that. That's why I moved to like the podcast side of things.
Fair play. I like it. One person, alive or dead, to have dinner with, Scott.
Okay, this is an interesting one. I would honestly say, and you guys are going to hate this now that we've said about Man United, just Sir Alex Ferguson would be. I'm tied between him and Jose Mourinho, because I think obviously it's very easy to say Sir Alex, like how to have such longevity and leadership over the years and continue to build teams and essentially run the entire football club, which we've noticed since he's left. There's so much you could just unpack with him, and also I just see him like a little grandpa figure. I'm not going to lie, like I just love to have a nice dinner with him and a chat. But then I also think Mourinho for me is. I see a lot of Mourinho in like CEOs and business owners, this kind of, it's kind of like controlled chaos and scattiness and a little bit of provoking and mind games. And I think there would just be awesome conversations, a lot to learn from him. And he's just the ultimate shitbag and I love it. Like, yeah, I just think he'd be awesome to chat to, just a guaranteed winner.
Yeah, nice. I think the good thing about using Alex Ferguson as an answer to that question is that you can't actually tell if he's alive or dead sometimes. So he kind of ticks both boxes.
So rude. How dare you?
Okay, one thing to ban from existence then, Scott. What are you gonna get rid of?
Oh, it's funny because I know I was meant to have a little look before these, but I'm just kind of going off my gut. Okay, I would honestly say, so I'm born and raised in London and our offices are in Tottenham Court Road, London. I don't know if you can do this, but I would like to ban slow walkers. They
Okay.
just getting stuck behind them on the tube, on the escalator when they're standing on you can't ban tourists from existence, but there is something about these just painfully slow. Like, we've got places to go. Don't take up the whole pavement. I don't think that's a valid answer, but it's these little things. I'm in a rush and people just frustrate me.
Very, very valid, but it's a very Londoner answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% valid. Whenever I'm around that area, I spend a lot of time just walking on the road, putting my life in danger. But I'd prefer that to being stuck behind someone. So yeah, I can feel that. All right, I'm excited for this one. Biggest fuck up / situation you've had to pick yourself up from.
It's kind of like I said before. It's just being a perfectionist like myself. It doesn't happen many times.
I mean, you support Man United, so there's got to be at least a few.
That was looking back. That's a bad decision. Okay, I honestly, like, two things come to mind, and both of it, my approach is the same. So one is work related. It was when I was first working. I was at MediaCom, doing paid social for Adidas and Reebok. And I mean, it sounds pretty obvious now, but it just didn't set a campaign limit and absolutely spent the shit out of this campaign within a day. And like, at the end of the day, I was like, well, I guess with that, obviously you get a little slap on the wrist and don't do this again. And, tens of thousands down the drain for Adidas. I don't really know how that's it, but it was a massive fuck up. It made me look, especially when I do pride myself on being very attentive to detail. It was a bit of an awkward situation when you're obviously trying to push to impress, etc. And honestly, like, kind of the mindset was just hands up. Like, yeah, I fucked up. But then how this is what I'm going to do to not do this again, etc. And just kind of owning it. I'm not one to kind of wallow in my mistakes. It's kind of, I've done it now. There's no point crying over it. Like, we just got to keep moving. And that's kind of how I pick myself up from it, I say. And just, I can only prove that I'm not going to do it again by not doing it again. The other thing would probably be I dyed my hair yellow. It was meant to be blonde during COVID when I think most people were doing it. That was just a fuck up, really. And similarly again, I was like, well, this is the situation I'm in. I can't really do much. I'm not shaving my hair off because my hairline's already a bit of an issue. So again, to pick yourself up by, well, I mean, again, my wife, I guess she was my girlfriend at the time. I wasn't even fiance. She just kind of rolled with it. I was like, well, we're stuck with this situation for a couple of months. So I won't do it again. Slap on the wrist and we keep on moving.
Well, I'm going to want to see a picture after this.
Yeah. I mean, fair play to you, Scott, for dyeing your hair yellow and still managing to marry her. That's a remarkable success, all things considered.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe it was just a good test to see if she really would stick around with me through thick and thin.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. And then on the flip side, then, what's your favorite memory, Scott, or the one thing that you're most proud of?
I'd go two sides. I go personal. It's hard to not use what appears like a cliche, but having my firstborn son, he was born 8 months ago. That was a pretty cool memory. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So I guess there's pride in that. And yeah, obviously it's just awesome to have him around in my life and in our life. And I would guess that that's kind of quite obvious. It completely changes the mentality, the mindset with work, with family, and just puts everything in perspective. So I guess, yeah, there's pride in that, of course. And then work-wise as well, I think recently we have been working with McLaren on behalf of one of our clients. So we've been able to work with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and that in itself has just been a really cool kind of pinch me moment. My agency with my co-founder Dan has been around for 5 years, or we're in our 5th year. And, I don't know if it's a short or a long period of time, but to be able to work with kind of global brands, like big name faces as well, and actually deliver cool work has just been, and get a shit ton of views on it, has just been a real like pat on the back. Like, we know what we're doing. We can handle the big dogs, even if we're set up the way we're set up as a kind of more nimble agency. So yeah, just proud of that sort of work as well. And that opportunity that kind of came around.
Nice. And I've seen the output from that work as well, and it was awesome. Really engaging stuff that is just built for attention and views, etc. So I can attest to that for sure. Nice. Scott, we're going to jump into some more kind of social media based questions now, and kind of pull out some of your expertise. So if you're particularly if you're listening to this podcast, if you're working in marketing, or if you're working for an e-commerce brand and you're responsible, at least in some part, for getting some social media content out there, you're going to get a bunch of value from this. I'm going to kind of jump in there straight away with a big question. And, some people roll their eyes when you say AI and on podcasts and in content these days, but it is important. It's a part of everybody's lives on a daily basis now. And what we're seeing is, this huge rise in AI content, not just on social media, but everywhere. But if we look at social media in particular, Scott, like, does AI content creation have a place? Do we need to keep content human? Like, what is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of AI. I just think, as you said there, it does have a place. I think there's too much of a conversation at the moment, or almost like a controversial take, that AI is replacing humans and there's never going to be any more work in the marketing space or in social media because AI is taken over. And I think my view of it is that it helps in a lot of ways, especially from the way we use it in our agency. We use it in that ideation phase. We use it in the processes as well. But I think ultimately it cannot, at least at this point, replace human judgment, even certain levels of creativity, that intangible stuff that you can't just feed in, that you kind of think of where you get inspiration. I think it's really having this conversation with yourself is, where is it actually going to help me and where is it overrated? An example I see in conversation recently is how Meta, with its Andromeda developments and more use of AIs as well, I've kind of become a bit more critical of it, because again, it puts that kind of mentality that all your ads can just be run by AI and you don't need humans to run your ads, and media buyers are kind of like they're not necessary at this point in time. But even I see it with a lot of our clients that we work with, is it's all well and good ticking, AI automation suggestion boxes, but most of the time they're not very good. Like Meta will say, oh, we'll give you a 5% lower CPA if you have text like flexibility. But then, I've seen it where I'll be scrolling through Instagram stories and then suddenly a square post comes up, which should be horizontal, which should be vertical, has text written across the middle, and it's clear that someone's just ticked that box to enable these AI suggestions. So there still needs to be that kind of manual side. I don't think we can fully go hands off. And I think that then has a knock-on effect as well with the way that brands approach AI, where they become more and more and more reliant on it. This idea that you can template a lot with AI. Like, I know with Canva, you can create like 400 graphics in like 5 minutes, basically, or full on social calendars with a conversation on Claude and setting up these sort of Claude coded bots for you and agents. But in my opinion, and I've seen it because I've been given briefs by people that are like, oh, I just got AI to put it together. It kind of leads to this like homogenized, undifferentiated approach, and often it's not really strategically correct. So, I was working with a guy that had like £500 a month ad budget. This was like a freelance gig, and he was like, oh, according to AI, I should be putting £2 a day on Google ads. I mean, anyone that knows a single thing about Google ads knows that £2 a day is going to do absolutely nothing for you, especially if you're expecting conversions and learning and testing, etc. So, yeah, I think there's still a massive, massive need for that human input. And again, it's just, where does AI fit, and using it in the right way. And then that kind of has knock-on effects to the actual content as well that's being produced.
Nice. Yeah, and I suppose, kind of keeping up with that theme, let's imagine that you are working for a startup, a scale-up, or any company really where the budget is being allocated elsewhere, right? So you don't have that much to work with, but you want to start making compelling social content. I think a lot of people in that position would gravitate to AI simply because AI, aside from being a good option for scale, is also a good option for low budget, relatively speaking. What would you say to those people, and what could they be doing that isn't AI related, but that still can be done with a limited budget?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of, again, it's like, so let's start with, what are we actually using social for? I think the era of posting a graphic every single day and getting your 30 posts in a month, tick that box, is completely gone. I think there's obviously value in carousels and graphics, but that's more for like actually keeping your community engaged, etc. I think you kind of got to look at it and go, that stuff is really easy to create with AI, hence my Canva example before, but what value is it actually going to provide to people? And so, the content that you should be producing, even if you don't have the budget, and if your objective is about reach, is going to be on platforms and placements that are actually going to get you reach. So posting a carousel isn't going to get you reach. It's posting reels, posting YouTube shorts, posting TikTok videos. Unfortunately, video content is what's going to get you there. And again, then the question goes, well, how do we do video cheap? Because it's typically expensive the way that people look at things. Well, I mean, using your iPhone is the first point of call, right? That's why I think we hear a lot of conversations now around types of content that work, like your founder content, myth busting, educational content, talking to camera videos. I think it's the type of stuff that people don't recognize actually have value. Like, I guess the point that I always make is people buy from people. So people are enjoying the stories and how you've come to the decision of creating this product and how you develop this product and actually buying into the brand a lot more. So even just talking through your day or myth busting, we work with a frozen fruit and veg brand, and their founder has the most unbelievable kind of insight and input as to why frozen is better for you than fresh, and whether that be due to the amount of preservatives that get put involved and how bad that is for your stomach, or whether it's about the shelf life or the cost efficiency. And he's able just to talk about this. But I think what they don't realize is, well, each of those pain points and solutions that you provide is a piece of content that you should talk about. And therefore you're aligning yourself with that industry, people with that sort of mindset, people that are looking for that solution. And as a byproduct, your brand is the answer. So to kind of go back to what could people create, you don't need to post a crazy amount, but when you're posting, it kind of needs to be more human centric, thinking about who you're trying to speak to and aligning yourself with the right communities that actually care. And as I say, conversion then comes as the byproduct of being the voice for that space.
Nice. You picked out some really nice examples of like some easy ways to just start creating some video content, right, and getting it out there, which is awesome. And I think, you look at that from if you say, okay, well, you're a brand and you've got there's 5 pain points that you solve. You don't even have just 5 pieces of content there, right? Because there might be 5 different ways to say those 5 different pain points. And then there's, another 5 different formats for getting that out there, whether that's talk to camera, whether that's UGC, whether it's, interview style stuff on the street, and all of a sudden, those 5 pain points could become, 5 times 5 times 5. And I only got a C in maths, so I don't know what that is, but, so I really like that. I think, when we spoke before, Scott, off air, something that you brought up was about taking consumers for granted, and this links quite nicely from what you were just saying there about we need to go back to what does the audience actually want from us. So if we think about that piece that you said there around not taking consumers or not taking our audience for granted, could you expand on that a little bit and just kind of give us a bit of insight into what you mean by that? And how brands a better way for brands to be, acting on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that I made this statement before is that social media is called social media. Like, you need to be social with it, right? And I think we're past the point of everybody understands how this game works. People are aware of UGC. They know what influencer deals look like. They even know what TikTok shop looks like and paid promos. Like, ultimately, it's not about attention media, which I know that conversation comes in, how do we grab attention? But social media is there to be social. So I always try and flip it and put your mind in that of the consumer and go, how do I interact with TikTok when I use it? I use it to escape from stuff. I don't use it to search stuff unless I actively want it. I'm trying to be entertained, to take my mind off things, maybe to learn a few things here or there. And so with that in mind, I'm like, okay, well then, if I was a brand and I want to get in front of Scott, what sort of content do I need to create that's going to get him interested, or that's going to engage him, or that's going to get him to want to share it with a friend? because ultimately it's not about selling on social anymore. Like, you need to focus on, how do I get more people to watch my content and care about me and my content, rather than how do I sell this product today. So in a similar sense, like, let's use a fitness brand as an example. They could easily sit there and be like, here are our protein powders, you should buy our protein powders because they help. Or they could do a whole series around the most important things for recovery, of which within that, taking your protein powder helps, right? And you're kind of aligning yourself, therefore, well, the fitness community is going to find it interesting because they want to learn, how do I improve my recovery? And as a byproduct, you're associating yourself with, well, we understand the recovery process, the fitness process, the health process, etc. So that the next piece of content you produce, because people have watched your video, they're going to want to see it again and again and again and again. You're building your community, you're building your attention. And then as a byproduct, it goes, oh, well, you've already subtly said, here are the 5 ways to improve recovery. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, and one of them is make sure you get 30 grams of protein a day. And my favorite way of doing this is just by taking X protein powder. All right. Number 5 is sleep. And you just naturally fit it in so that people are engaging, people are watching, people can be entertained, people can learn, but they don't feel like they're being sold to. And I think that's where a massive thing is being lost. As soon as we see an ad, as soon as someone tells us what to do, our human instinct is just to switch off and say, no, I know best. We kind of want to get to that conclusion ourselves by doing our own research. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. No, I completely agree. I can't remember. It might have been the book on negotiation by Chris Voss. I can't remember what it's called now. Is it like Negotiate Like Your Life Depends on It or something? I can't remember what it's called.
Like Don't Split the Difference or something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I got the completely wrong title. That's what it's called. But I think one of the things there is about how people are much more likely to come around to your way of thinking if they think it's their idea. And that's, you're completely right there. And that way of producing content must be, now that I think about it, when I'm consuming stuff on social media, that I'm often getting stuff like that. Whether it's from golf brands or whatever else I'm into, that kind of content will always keep me watching more, right?
Well, I guess it also comes back, like, the question always comes down to, who is your audience and what do they care about? So that example I gave probably works within the fitness industry, but it also depends where you position yourself as a brand. So another example, if you don't mind, would be like a high-end watch brand, like a really premium brand, isn't so much wanting to associate itself with certain silly games, or potentially even the founder-led content shot on an iPhone doesn't work because they're high end, right? So their audience might actually care about craftsmanship. They might care about detail and the heritage, the investment value if they're buying it. And you kind of think of it that way. People aren't buying a Casio to kind of invest in the future, but I mean, people aren't probably buying Richard Milles either that are listening to this, but you never know. But they might be buying like a Breitling, and with an investment side of it. So your content might be a little bit more of a deep dive in, how's the watch made? What's that like artisan approach to it? The history and the value of I'm just using Breitling as an example here. How does everything get? Where does all the raw materials even come from, and what attention to detail is given to sourcing the right materials? Even still, the assembly, the craft, the ASMR, like, again, you tend to find what is the, not just psychology, but the personality of the sort of person that is obsessed with our product. Well, they might be a bit of a perfectionist. They might be a little bit more kind of rigid and specific, and therefore enjoy that sort of content, the assembly side of things. But they also, from a completely different brand, might just be a bit crazy, a bit wacky, a bit fun. And therefore that sort of content makes more sense. So, dancing in a factory content works for, that tasting the flavored toothpick brand, but it wouldn't work for a Rolex brand, right? So quality versus virality is really important in seeing how that content style fits with your like audience and your own brand position. There's an interesting balance there.
Yeah, I really like that, because I think there is a knee-jerk some reaction to jump onto trends sometimes without really assessing whether it's the right audience, the right audience fit is there. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it segues on nicely to the next question that we had, which is about views for views' sake, right? It's obviously reach is a metric that you've already mentioned, Scott, and that seems to be the barometer through which most people will measure the success of their socials. Is that the right barometer? Are there other things we ought to be focusing on?
In all honesty, it comes down to what is your brand's objective? What is the purpose of using social? Because if you're sitting there saying, I need it for sales, well, then you need to be working on TikTok Shop and building your creator network and making sure that you're getting essentially eyeballs on all of your content and you're pushing the problems and this, that, and the other. If you're saying, well, we want it for brand and we want it long term, then again, that influences the sort of content that you're creating and therefore what your objectives are. If you say we want to use social to eventually build our email list, well, then you want to be building an engaged audience, an engaged community, ones that are commenting, one that are actually coming back for more. So not so much first time viewers, but multiple time viewers. Again, in the same sense, you then look at a massive brand like a Nike or an Apple or whatever, and it's like, well, are they doing it for views? What are their KPIs? Like they would probably be doing it just for views and eyeballs and attention. Again, from my experience in the past with Adidas running kind of brand campaigns, a big part of it was about getting the reach, getting impression targets, getting clicks. But there was obviously a performance team that their whole focus was on hitting ROAS targets. So really, again, just to that point, it completely depends on what your objective is. Now, I would always say for like a startup of a scale up, views don't matter. It's more about the quality of the views, and the two do go hand in hand. You know, if your content's good, it gets shares, it gets likes, it gets comments. Well, the algorithm's only going to push it more because you're the reason why people are spending more time on the platform. So views come as a byproduct of strong engagement, and that strong engagement ultimately will lead or could lead further down the line to brand actions.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. We're kind of coming up to, or just ticked over half an hour, Scott. So one more question for you. This is called Send Better Emails. So at some point we have to talk about emails, the role that they play in e-commerce. If we don't, then all we've got is Scott doesn't like newsletters to talk about email. So, I think you mentioned you've done a bit of work previously in email marketing yourself, Scott. Just quickly, your view on email marketing for e-commerce brands. How important is it? And how does it work well with social media?
Okay, so contrary to the fact that I don't really subscribe to many newsletters, I think when it comes from a brand, I honestly think email marketing is vital. I think it's easy to look at social as being important and paid being important, but ultimately, I'm glad you like that, James. Ultimately, the role of social in a lot of places and paid is to kind of, I always say like a good objective is try and get people off social and into your own community where you can actually own it. You can own the data. You can own the conversation, own the narrative and control what your community is seeing. Whereas with social, you don't really have that level of control. As I say, our background, when we started the agency, we did a little bit of everything digital wise. We did websites, we did SEO, we did email. So kind of see how it all fit together and the actual monetary value side of emails, but kind of got rid of that just because it's not really our specialty. And I think it's the perfect opportunity to reinforce brand, reinforce community. I think often people see emails as a retention tool, as a way to kind of retain customers and get more orders in. A new product drops or we've got a Valentine's Day special, whatever. But I actually think it's a retention tool to retain community and retain attention. So as I say, it's an opportunity to reinforce your brand, reinforce what you stand for, educate your audience, keep them excited, keep them involved in the journey so they actually care, because the attention economy is ridiculously weak these days, where people are getting shown shiny objects left, right, and center, that you need to be the brand that they care about. You need to care about them. And so I think it's, as I say, I kind of view social as like community and brand, obviously, but email is really about deepening that connection. And therefore the two kind of have to work together rather in isolation. Like the brand that you portray on social needs to follow through with email and actually through the entire purchase process and beyond.
Nice. Awesome. Good stuff. Scott, you've dropped a lot of wisdom here and I really appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners will as well. Just quickly, before we wrap up, if people want to get in touch with you, ask questions, etc., where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. Scott Hircombe, spelled Hircombe. It's a fun surname to spell. But yeah, post pretty regularly on LinkedIn. Based, as I say, in London, so easy to have meetings in town or go wherever. But yeah, that's kind of it for
Nice.
me.
Go for a coffee with Scott. Just don't walk slowly when you're around him. You'll be fine. Nice. Okay. Well, thanks, Scott. Thanks everyone for listening. And we'll catch you next time.
Cheers, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.